Welcome to Palazzo Vettori and the lecture series fall 2019. This semester we have 3 keynote lectures. The first will be given by Dr. Davide Lombardo, who teaches for us. Then the next appointment will be October 28th with Dr. Nicoletta Peluffo, who will give us a lecture on Pinocchio and the novel. Second half of the 1800s. And then we have on November the 5th, the final lecture by the director of the Uffizi Gallery, Eike Schmidt. He didn't give me the title, but probably sooner or later he will share with us what he will talk about. Tonight we go ahead with Davide. Davide is a professor here at Kent State University Florence. He teaches for arts and sciences here, political science. And David is a well-known and esteemed historian and political scientist. He got his PhD at the European University Institute here in Fiesole. He has extensively published on the European Union. I've heard a lecture of yours at NYU, when was it? 6 months ago. Very interesting as well, with interesting debate at the end. So I'm expecting some questions from you at the end of this presentation. And tonight, David, who has studied, as I've said, at the European University Institute, at Yale University, in the most prestigious institutions in the world, will give us a lecture on whatever it takes, European Union 2019, the state and future of the Union. Davide Lombardo.
Thanks, Fabrizio, for this generous presentation, introduction, and yes, and for inviting me to do this. I enjoy very much doing this. I was looking at the abstract and at the title, which we devised together more than 6 months ago, before the European elections, thinking about, okay, we'll do this in October to try to understand what, in the meantime, will have happened. The European elections, the change in the institution, and Brexit, we assumed it would have already happened, and instead we are still waiting. So, and in this light, the title of the lecture, whatever it takes, was a way to sort of evoke a very famous phrase by President of the European Central Bank, Mario Draghi, who is stepping down, and I will be talking about that. But at the same time, sort of applying it with a question mark to the question of Brexit, whatever it takes. Actually, that hasn't happened yet, but let's say that was the spirit of the title, to explain to the audience. This lecture has been made with in mind the audience, which is largely of students who are in Europe but may not be very well acquainted with the European Union, the institution of the European, so it's based an introduction. I thank my colleagues who have come here, and also my student of my classes here who come and may hear things that they've heard already. So let's start. So I want to thank everybody, but also invite everybody to interrupt me whenever you want to ask question, clarification, or just if something comes to your mind, just please stop me and let's have a conversation. Okay, so first, exactly. So let's pay homage to the guy who saved us. This is the famous quote that comes from the title, and it's one of the most famous quotes from the last 10 years, at least in Europe. It happened July 26, 2012, and this is the actual kind of verbatim of the speech, much longer, and there it is. Within our mandate, the European Central Bank is ready to do whatever it takes to preserve the euro, and believe me, it will be enough. Said in a very quiet tone. Go back and have a look at the YouTube versions. And it really was a moment in which everybody was, it was 10 years after the introduction of the euro, and everybody was expecting, with the financial crisis and the Greek crisis, for the euro to collapse. And Mario Draghi, with this speech and the intervention that came afterward, basically saved the European currency. And now he's stepping down because his term ends on the 31st of October. On 1st of November, there will be a new president of the European Central Bank. So this is a big transition that we are going to witness in the next months. This is, as you will discover, this is a preparation speech for what's coming up in the next weeks, which is a series of shifts which are very, very important. Having said that, let's introduce a little bit, just very quickly, and this will be a repetition for my students, the European Union. So this is the speech is divided into two. The first part is devoted to the transition that is taking place in the European institution in Brussels, Strasbourg, Frankfurt, in the various, let's say, center of powers of the European Union. And the second part is going to be devoted to Brexit, the exit of the UK from the European Union, and the North Irish border in particular, and why it is such an important issue stopping the Brexit negotiations and let's say the exiting of the UK. So that's the structure of the lecture. We start first of all with little kind of just to, for those of you who are not let's say, familiar with the European Union, this is the official map, or almost official map of the European Union, with all the various countries in their own language, with the colors for the different time they go in. The gray bit in the middle is the first 6 countries, and there you have the list of the coming in of the various groups of countries. To the current situation of 28 countries in the European Union, and then the European Union will go down from 28 to 27 when the UK will go out, probably in 2020, or who knows, in 2019. And that's the first things, just visually there. From a conceptual political science point of view, the European Union is a combination of a legal custom federation, economic federation, and a confederation of political state. And this is the mix. It is a powerful instrument created by the nation states, because European nation states are many and they are small at the global level. By creating the European Union, they created this body by which their combined force is much larger than their single force. And so it's important for them from this point of view. It's an instrument of the government. Major success policy in the last 30, 40 years of the European Union, I just put there some of the most notable thing: Schengen, the thing that makes you travel everywhere, every weekend with Ryanair, Vueling, and so on. You need to think that, I mean, you come from the United States, and as US citizen, you may have other privileges in terms of the possibility of traveling with visa or ESA. But you need to think that the privilege that you are enjoying is open to anyone who has a visa to one of the member states. Somebody from Bangladesh get a visa to Romania, he or she has the right to travel throughout the 28 countries. So, think about that and the amount of coordination that it is needed to get rid of the borders in that sense. Police coordination, trade coordination, millions of things. The euro, single currency for 16 of the 28 countries, or 18, I don't remember anymore. The single market, which is the single thing that you can exchange and commerce with everywhere, which is it's more than the 28 countries because you have also Norway, Iceland, and Switzerland participating to the single market, even if they are not part of the union. And the custom union, 29 countries, European member state plus Turkey that is part of the custom union, which is these things by that you know that Trump has just put new tariffs on European products in response to there is this issue with Airbus, the plane company that constructs European planes and is the main concurrent of Boeing at world level, which received some help from France and Germany. And on the basis of that, Trump has put some tariffs. The question is that because there is a custom union, Trump cannot put a tariff on France and Germany, has to put a tariff on Europe. Because there is a custom union. And the answer of the Europeans will have to be at European level, even if now everybody is negotiating not to have the product in the list. But nonetheless, the mechanism is at the custom union. There is one only authority that can work tariffs at European level, and that is the European Commission in Brussels. You understand that this is a huge change for a country. Not to have money, not to have customs, not to have borders. I mean, it's a big deal. We live really in a kind of weird experiment here at the moment. Anyway, let's go on. So, after this very brief, compact introduction, let's get on to what is happening. So, I should have another slide which has disappeared. So, every 5 years, there is elections. In Europe, the term is 5 years and not 4 like in the United States. And this has evolved that basically there are the main election of the European Parliament, but also the other institutions have coordinated with the Parliament so that we have a term for the Parliament that corresponds with the term of the Commission, which is the main, let's say, bureaucratic and governmental executive body of the European Union. And so every 5 years there is this big kind of shift. The elections were in 2019 in May, and we were expecting, and we were talking as we were planning this lecture, was before the European election, was in April, and we were expecting the populist turn at the election, that there would be this kind of momentous earthquake in politics in which the populist movement across Europe would win the majority in the European Parliament, and who knows what could happen then, as they would also at that point control the legislation and all of this. Actually, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. In the European Parliament, there are 751 representatives for the 28 countries, grouped in political groups, as it is normal in any parliament. That is, that you don't sit by country, but you sit by political affiliation. This is the list of groups that you don't need to know, but the top is the very left, then the social democratic, then the IFA is the green, the RE is the liberals, then the EPP, the largest, is the popular European People Party. In bold, I put the two main political families, traditional, the European People Party, the center right, and the SD, the Socialist and Democrat, which are the other group. 182, 154, in blue and red. The populists are the ECR and the ID. Some of the populists are also elsewhere, but the main two groups of populists in the end have 130 seats, but they are together, which means they also don't agree with each other. They make less than the Socialist Democrats. They are comparative with the liberals. So it really was quite a major defeat. And it was really unexpected that things would turn this way. And the populist groups, which were really kind of conducting European politics in the last 2-3 years, would not succeed, or would succeed so much less than expected. Now, why? Who knows, of course. But I have two tips for you that I have found together with the students as I was making a class. So I'll propose them to you. And these are two little points that came in the standard Eurobarometer. The standard Eurobarometer is this poll that is done every 6 months by this statistical service of the European Union on the opinions of Europeans on the European Union issues. And you have this one, is the evolution from 2014 to 2019 of the 6 main preoccupations of Europeans in relation to EU policy priorities. If you look, what is interesting and quite unexpected to us, or at least I didn't have this perception, is the fact that migration has been slowly coming down as a main preoccupation starting from 2015-16. And other preoccupations are sort of, but there is interesting this convergence. Sort of, the one that were less preoccupation, like environment or climate change, are going up, while terrorism and migration are going down, and everything is getting more or less to the same level. That means the policy preoccupation among Europeans are converging, which means that the populist kind of standard thing on migration wouldn't have the same appeal. I really wasn't aware of this. I think it's quite an interesting point. And the second is the same, but it's more kind of pointed. The last 6 months, fall 2019, spring 2019, of the same, including the one that are not the first 6. You see, this is just the last 6 months. In gray is October 2018. In reddish is spring 2019. And you see migration only goes down, seriously going down, in just 6 months. And these are the 6 months of the electoral campaign. So, this is just a little glimpse in the millions questions, but let's say it's a glimpse of what was going on in the mind of people that then went to vote. Please.
My question is, what exactly defines a populist party? Like what?
Sorry.
And like,
sorry.
what's the
So, go
difference?
ahead.
What's the
Finish.
difference between the two populist parties and like, what's the difference between the two populist parties and like, are they? How would you compare them to like an American political party?
No, the American the last part I will not answer because that's on the a difference between an American political party. The difference between the various political parties. So there are populist parties that are focusing on, let's say, national issues, and this is a family of parties. There are other populist parties that are focusing on regional issues, some of them, like some of the parties in Catalonia, some of the parties. These are families that don't meet at all. They hate each other. They can't have a common policy platform because their priority lay on something else. They are both using populist agendas or ways of communicating, but they really are on different platforms. Or in Italy, let's say, open to discussion, of course, as anything that we say, but the populist party of, let's say, the five-star had certain policy options which were, let's say, national but not right-wing. And this made their attempt to their populism in part only in part convergent with the nationalist populist agenda. This is a partial answer to your question. On the definition of populist is when one possible way to start thinking about that is when you sort of wants to bypass representation and go straight in a relationship between authorities and people. Yeah, that's kind of a way to start thinking about that. But thank you very much. Okay, so the parliament was elected, and basically a standard, more or less, scenario took place where the usual parties were majority. European People Party, the center right, with the strong at this point support opposition of the other big European. The three European families are the S&D, the RE, and the EPP. As you see, the pro-European is almost the three largest still groups in the European Parliament. So once the Parliament is in, then the Parliament meets in June, and one of the first jobs is that they have to discuss the renewal that is pending of the Commission, and I'll get into that. But first of all, here is one of the things that they do is the election of the new president of the European Parliament, which in this case unexpectedly was an Italian, because an Italian had just finished his term as president of the Parliament, and another Italian was elected. The previous one was from the Conservative, the center-right. But because the center-right was getting the president of the Commission, then they elected a social democrat as president of the Parliament, and they took another Italian. Everybody had expected a different country to be in charge, but instead there was this convergence on this name. The Parliament has already approved the new Commission, the head of the new Commission, and now in the next months will be responsible to approve the Commission in its entirety. The Commission, the 27, 28 members will have to stand in front of the Parliament and get an approval as a whole. If they don't get approval, they can't start working. At the European Commission, from November 1st, 2019, there will be the head of the commission will be this woman. Is the first ever woman at the head of the commission, Ursula von der Leyen, a German. You need to get used to this name because you're going to hear it so much in the next 5 years. And she's the former defense secretary, you would say, in the United States, the defense ministry of Germany. She has 6 kids. She's very tough in negotiations, and seems that nobody wants to sit against her in any table. So everybody's a little scared of her. But we'll see. It's different. That long note that I put there is because she has been chosen by member state in a negotiation, but not taking into account suggestions for the political groups. And this has led to a breakup between, let's say, member states, which are the stakeholders, Italy, France, Germany, and the parliament, who felt a little bit like was kicked. And actually it was a kick to the parliament. So there are these kind of fights going on at the moment. Anyway, finally she got approval by the parliament, and we'll see her at work. But just take a note of this name. You're going to hear it a lot. Other things there are, and this is another change is going to take place on November 1st, 2019. Something else is changing, the European Council. The European Council is the body that meets regularly, where leaders meet and take the political decision. So, shall we have a new agreement on migration? The decision is taking place. Shall we have new country coming in? Shall we make the tariffs against Trump? All of these things are decided in the European Council and then passed down to make law. The European Council has a president, which was a the former Polish Prime Minister, Donald Tusk. Now is going to be replaced, starting December 1st, 2019, by this guy, Jean-Michel, a French-speaking Belgian former Prime Minister. At this point, if you count, there is an Italian president of the parliament, a German president of the Commission, a Belgian French-speaking president of the Euro Council, the president of the Eurogroup, which I didn't list, is a Portuguese who has just been in charge for 1 year. Nothing is left for Eastern countries. And this is my point there. This is another kind of source of tension in the European Union because, let's say, a balance between large countries, small countries, Eastern country, Western country, Northern country, Southern country, all these things needs to be balanced. Now you have Portugal, which is small, Belgium, which is small, Germany, which is big, Italy, which is big, but everybody is from the West. And the Eastern countries are many. They are small, but they are many. So that's a little bit unfair, and it's felt unfair. Okay, and then we have the European Central Bank, who is, I've already said, Mario Draghi is one of the most important, institution, and as all central bank needs to be very stable. So the term is not 5 years, but 8 years. However, this year, it coincides, the term of the European Central Bank, with that of the Parliament Commission. So we have this other step at the moment. Is the guy of whatever it takes. You know that now at the European Central Bank, they meet every year on the 26th of July, and it's the whatever it takes day. I think in few years we'll have a celebration on July 26th. It will be substituted by this guy, this woman. It's another woman that enters the top of the European positions, Christine Lagarde, who has been president of the IMF, Monetary Fund, International Monetary Fund, and she has finished her term in the summer of 2019, and now she's going to become, and she's a French, another Western country. So in the transition, the imbalance will kind of strengthen, it seems. It's unclear what will happen. Part 2, Brexit. I knew that I was given 45, 50 minutes, and so I'm trying to stay not too far from that, which I will. Brexit. Brexit has been now an ongoing story since 2015, when the referendum was announced. Let me say, Britain, London is and was, in the last 20 years, the real capital of Europe. Everybody went to study in London, went to work in London for a month, went to study English. From Europe, everybody has been to London for a work or study relation, and really was an absolutely central location in the identity. So the going away of London is really a blow to I think to the European imagination of the and probably will remain somehow in that position, even if the UK goes out. The second thing I want to say on, let's say, on a feeling level, is this. The UK is the first democracy in the world, the first constitutional regime in the world, and certainly in Europe. Seeing the UK in this spiral of constitutional crisis that cannot get out is really a pain for all of us. To see the British Parliament, what I couldn't believe, humiliated by it being closed by the Prime Minister, is unthinkable. To have the UK Parliament, which is a sovereign parliament. There is no parliament where things happens in the parliament. That the Prime Minister goes in parliament, that's where he falls or stands, which doesn't happen in that many. So that's a really painful for, I think, all of us, of my generation, of other generations. It's a general thing to look at Brexit and look up every day at the news from Britain. Let's get onto Brexit. So this is the results of the referendum in 2016 in Britain. You see, I want to point out, so in yellow is remain, in gray is leave. Yes. So you see that basically, and the results are there, 52% leave, 48 remain, which is a small but clear majority, because it's a 4% difference. And that's a significant difference. It's 3.5% difference. It's a small but significant. You see that London voted stay, and England voted leave. Now, as much as big is London for the UK, still is not the majority. It's about probably fourth of the English, not of the British. You see that consistently England is for leaving, but less so, especially Scotland. The border of Scotland is the border with remain. And also you see a little bit of division in Wales, and a clear division in Northern Ireland, where part of the population wanted to stay and part of the population wanted to leave. It's basically, besides this national division, the Scottish, and then there is the rural, in part, or the small cities versus the metropolis. London, the votes, we stay, and the rest. And then there was the other division. The young people vote to stay, the older generation vote to leave. So it's a very divided vote. They came out of the referendum. Referendum are not binding in the UK, but when you do a referendum, then people have talked, and what can you do? This is another result. Same here. What happens is that So the referendum was in 2016 in June. It took 9 months, and the UK government triggered Article 50. Article 50 of the Treaty of the European Union is the right of secession. This is something that you don't get usually in constitution. You can't leave the United States, you can't leave Italy, you can't leave France, and so on. And this is any member state may decide to withdraw from the Union in accordance with its own constitutional requirements. A member state which decides to withdraw shall notify the European Council of its intention. That's what happened in 2017, in end of March. And at that point, point 3, the treaty shall cease to apply to the state in question from the date of entry into force of the withdrawal agreement, or failing that, 2 years after the notification referred to in paragraph 2. So after 2 years, if you don't get an agreement before, it will cease. That day was the 29th of March, 2019. Where is it? In agreement, unanimously decides to extend this period, unless the European Council, in agreement with the member state concerned, unanimously decide to extend this period. And that's what has happened throughout 2019, that the UK couldn't reach an agreement with the European Union, but more than that, couldn't agree in the parliament about an agreement which was acceptable to them. And as such, they've asked twice already to postpone the withdrawal. First, June 30th, and now October 31st. And so we are here, waiting for this to happen, not to happen. In the meantime, the situation in the UK going from bad to worse, to say the least. So I've already done the chronology. So the only thing that currently the situation is this: the Parliament, which had got this slap in the face of being closed by the Prime Minister, in those 3-4 days in which was open before the closing, after the summer break, voted an act on September 9, which says that if no agreement is made with the EU, the Prime Minister has to ask for another delay. So now the Prime Minister of Britain is completely cornered between let's say, having to make an agreement and having it to pass in Brussels and in Parliament, or having to ask another extension. And this is what is going on at the moment in Britain, where the current Prime Minister is not able to pass the agreement to Parliament. He wouldn't be able. What happens with Brexit? Brexit means that the country exit from the single market, exit from the custom union, exit from all the agreement, exit from Schengen, exit from any coordination policy, doesn't pay, it doesn't receive money from the union. But this involves a number of rights as well. What will happen to the more than 2-3 million people that are European nationals that live in the UK and have the right of citizenship as you, and will not be citizens anymore? And what will happen to the UK citizens who are more than 1 million or 1.5 million living in the continent, and overnight they lose their right? The right to work, the right to reside, the right to everything. So it's a big deal and touches people's life. This is not just an agreement that happens between government. No, this is going into people's daily life, the possibility of migrating. The UK relies on medical doctors from Germany, the Netherlands, Denmark for its national health service to function. These people will not be able to work anymore on the basis they used to if Brexit goes. So this is a big deal at so many levels. In principle, all of this will happen abruptly on November 1st if there is no an agreement. How is that really possible? To just bang, just get into this sort of situation abruptly without a plan, let's say. Okay. I just put there, Norway is not in the EU, but it's part of the single market. This was at one point one of the possible solutions. Stay in the single market so that you can trade, all of these things, which again will not be possible anymore, but stay out. But Norway, to stay in the single market, has to comply with European regulation. So basically, you are getting out of the political part, which is the one you get power, to in any case having to comply with what they decide in Brussels. So many people in the UK who voted for Brexit say, no, we want to go all the way. Not the Norwegian, but being out all the way. Okay, let's turn to the last part. This is the current Prime Minister of Britain, Boris Johnson, there are many legends about Boris Johnson. One is that one night he had these two pieces of paper, one leave, one remain, and he weighted them, and on the basis of what will I be more successful with, he chose leave, which was basically not a political decision, but was basically a populist decision to shorten the issue. I told you already how he's cornered in a position which is impossible. He's very weak. He's made many things which eroded the consensus at various levels, at party level, at public opinion level, and who knows. His proposal, he has just proposed, is made a proposal that would not pass in Parliament and would not receive an okay from the Unionists, that is the pro-UK in the Northern Ireland, neither from the Irish. But why is Ireland why Ireland matters so much? And I'll try to explain this, because I've been saying this for 2 years when it happens, because people don't realize why Ireland matters. So this is Ireland, Republic of Ireland, and then there is Northern Ireland, for those of you who have not been there or don't know about this. So that part in the north belongs to the UK, while the rest is the Republic of Ireland. Since 1920, that's the situation. The negotiation have blocked on this word, which is repeated constantly in the news, the backstop. What is the backstop? Is the fact that in the agreement between how do we make Northern Ireland get out of the single market and of the union, the negotiation have stopped on the question of the backstop. It's basically an idea that you don't make Northern Ireland exit the custom of the single market, while the rest of the UK, that is Great Britain, exit the single market. This, of course, is what we would call in other countries a national thing, but it's not a national because Great Britain, UK is not a nation. It's four nations. It's It's an institutional question, very complicated. This is not acceptable to conservative, is not acceptable to unionist, and is not acceptable to the, it's acceptable to the Irish only to an extent. It depends. Why is the backstop? Why is there this issue about Ireland and the backstop? Why should Ireland, Northern Ireland, stay or remain? It is because the Brexit impacts on a separate treaty. Not on the treaty of the European Union, not on any European treaty. There is a treaty between the UK and the Republic of Ireland. A very important treaty, one of the most successful treaties in the past century and in this century as well, that stop a civil war and terrorism. It's a huge landmark, political landmark. The 1998 Good Friday Agreement that stopped terrorism in the UK and the civil war in Northern Ireland. They had lasted for 60 years. In that agreement, in the Good Friday Agreement, basically Ireland becomes one. I'll put here one quote. Look at the quote. Comma 2 of the constitutional issues on the treaty. Recognize that it is for the people of the island of Ireland alone by agreement between the two parts respectively and without external impediment to exercise the right of self-determination on the basis of consent and so on. Yeah. Ireland is one. And there are joint institutions of government. As a result of the Good Friday Agreement, there is no border. But there is no border, no checkpoints, not only in terms of between Italy and France and so on, but there is no border also for these political reasons. How can you put the border for goods and people between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland without breaking this agreement? There is no way out. And this is why Theresa May proposed the backstop, because okay, let's leave the Irish on their own and we'll have Britain. But this, of course, is a big break in the national union of the UK, or whatever it is, in the Union of the UK, United Kingdom, in the Union, in that union, not the European Union, but the Kingdom Union. What can you do? In the meantime, the two Ireland have become one, really. If you go there, you drive, I mean, there's nothing. You just go from one to the other. I'll pull up a video from the BBC that shows you this. You see, the transition back to having a border is very, very difficult to think and to implement. And those of you who have Irish origin may know that, we are talking about serious issues there. If a border would start, then maybe again civil war between the Catholics and the Protestants, like in the 17th century, or even worse things, and control and repression. So it's extremely good. So this is why the question of Ireland was completely stopped and somehow, how do you say, hijacked the negotiations. Because nobody, it is blocked from the Irish side. We don't go back from that. And this block from the Unionist conservative in the UK is that we don't give up on Northern Ireland. And so in the end, this has been a major kind of problem in the negotiation about Brexit, which actually everybody is at a certain point at the negotiation, they look at Ireland and they almost are forgetting about all these other issues they are, let's say, influencing millions of people's lives. Okay, so we'll see if there will be another extension, or will abruptly get to the 1st of November and the UK will be out. This is coming. So, on the 31st of October, you are the new president of the European Central Bank, the new president of the Commission, and Brexit. So, watch out for Halloween 2019. It's a big Halloween, really, really to be scared. Okay, thank you very much. I finish here.
So what are the limits, constitutional limits, for not having a new referendum in England? Because probably, should they vote now, they would vote differently, because it's 4 years they are fighting with this kind of decision just been taken at the referendum in 2015 of Brexit. Do we have any constitutional limit for that? Do we have any? Why they're not doing it? Why no one is proposing this in the parliament and try to go ahead with this kind of proposal?
So there are no constitutional limits on having a second referendum. There is no, let's say, there are several referenda that have been done, but basically there is no constitutional meaning in having two. A second referendum is one of the options, but a second referendum needs to be an alternative to the new elections. And as there have been a number of elections, a referendum cannot take place or is an alternative political option. There is one problem with the second referendum. That is that parties are not sure they want to embark. So it's a political party situation that they want to embark into that. It would be clearly sort of problematic to ask again, and you need to bring the public into sort of saying, let's decide, and how you word it. So they are talking about having a new election coming up, because Boris Johnson may fall in the next 3 weeks, and at that point there could be a new some election. Some of the parties, the Liberal Democrats, are talking about putting those elections as a sort of Brexit second referendum. But in this, there is one problem, and the problem is not Boris Johnson, but it's this guy. Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the main opposition party, the Labour, is very ambiguous, and has been ambiguous on Brexit since the beginning. So it is not opposite to Brexit. And so you are part of the party of the Conservative pro-Brexit, another part pro-Remain. A good part and the leader of the main opposition party who is not actually so sure about Brexit, because many of the voters of the UK, look at this, many of the voters of the Labour Party come from the industrial area, which are most blue. So they voted. It's a little bit like the election of Trump. No, Workers vote for Trump. It's the same here. Workers vote for leave. And so this is the rationale a little bit behind Jeremy Corbyn about him not going for. So if the opposition was compact, probably they would get a referendum and Boris Johnson would have already fallen. But they're being very ambiguous, that all takes this shape and provoke the crisis.
So would you say that the question of whether or not to leave the European Union is divided between political parties?
In Britain?
Yeah.
Is divided between political parties. Yes, but because the division runs across. So there are the Unionists who are Northern Irish and are Protestant, and they are clearly for Brexit, but especially to remain in the UK. And then the Conservatives are divided a little bit. But now their party was the one who proposed the referendum. So you need to follow a little bit your party. The Labour officially would be against, but basically it's much more ambiguous. And the Liberal Democrats are remain against Brexit. So it's part of the problem is that the division runs between groups, political groups. The division is in societies. One of the interesting things about the Irish thing, let me tell you this, is that it's very interesting that the UK has a vote for Brexit. And part of the vote for Brexit, it's a vote for a nostalgia of the empire. They say we'll get rid of the Polish plumber, we'll get rid of the Romanian building, we get rid of the Italian waiter, and we'll substitute them with the Pakistani, the Indian, the African from the former empire. And it's fantastically ironic that this dream of the empire, this nostalgic dream of the empire, bumps into Ireland, which was the center and the key piece of the empire. It's one of those irony of histories which is very interesting from, let's say, political perspective.
Do you have a reason why Scotland is so yellow?
So Scotland, my dear Scotland, I lived there for 1 year. Scotland is profoundly pro-European on the base of an anti-England sentiment, anti-English sentiment. Prior to the Brexit referendum, there was a Scottish referendum in 2014 that proposed to the Scots to leave the UK. Of course, in the eyes of the Scots, which I don't know how they would survive without the English, but anyway, was that then they would get into the EU. And part of the campaign was this: the British telling the Scots, don't dream. If you get out of the UK, which will be in the Union, will say no to your request to enter the EU. And you'll never get into the Europe as you want, getting out of the UK, and you'll never get the Euro. At that point, that shift, 50% to 44%, Scottish people voted not to exit the UK. But 40% that wants to leave, I mean, it's serious business. So, on the basis of these things, the result in Scotland remain. They want to remain in the EU, are strongly pro-European. one of the things that Sturgeon, the leader of the Scottish Nationalist Party, is saying is, if you are getting Brexit, wait for another referendum of the Scottish. Who knows? Huh? That's very, very complicated. So that's the little answer I can give.
Can the EU refuse to give an extension for Brexit?
Yes, by the terms of the treaty, I'll show you the terms of the treaty. What is required, where is it? Article 50, here. By the terms of the treaty, the European Council unanimously has to decide to extend the period. So, you would need just to have one country voting against the extension, and Britain wouldn't get it. Would that happen, really? It seems the Hungarians are kind of saying, oh, we're not going to vote it. But in the end, at that level of the European politics, there is always that, oh, we're not going to vote it. What will you give us in exchange? So that's how it's going to work. So that's not going to happen in this way. It could be different if there is an agreement not to say. But at that point, why would ever the European Union, with the UK in this mess, take on the responsibility of a political failure of the negotiation? Let them take that responsibility. It's clearly from an institutional point of view, why should ever the EU take the responsibility of sending things into a mess? No. You are making the mess, you are solving it, if you want. So it's clearly, this is a political negotiation. The EU in this moment is much stronger, just because the UK has no government, it's a mess. Yeah, so that's the answer.
My question was just about the referendum. Like, a referendum is not like super binding? Like they could have another referendum if they wanted to, or is that possible? I don't know.
Because there is no written constitution in the UK, and the sovereign power in the UK is the parliament. It's a parliamentary monarchy. So the supreme power is the parliament. It's in parliament that decisions are made. Hence, because there is no constitutional validity that is binding, it's an important voice, but it's the parliament that needs to decide. And so that's the answer. It's a parliamentary monarchy.
Thank you, David, for this brilliant
thanks to you.
presentation. Thank you very much. Have a good night.